it's very basic and it's well known. I think really the key is a willingness to change, and getting clear on your on your commitment to change. But it's going to vary from person to person. But there's four things that I have found consistently with most people that need to change. And the first one we covered earlier, but it's getting an adequate amount of rest. Most people don't do it. You got to get a decent amount of sleep every night. At least bare minimum 6 hours. Most people do better with 7 or 8, but you got to shoot for a bare minimum of six to 7 hours, I would say, each night. You got to give your body a chance to recharge every day, and if you don't do that consistently, you build up a sleep deficit. Your health is going to suffer. There is no doubt about it. There are tons of things that happen, both physiologically inside your body, stuff that you wouldn't even know is happening. But there are changes to your immune system, changes to the composition of your blood, your oxygenation of your tissues. There's tons and tons of things. And then obviously there's some outward signs and symptoms. Obviously, you're fatigued, you don't have any energy, you're irritable, you're stressed out. A lot of those things are, if not caused, at least aggravated by not an adequate amount of sleep. When somebody's tired, they're a little irritable, generally speaking.
Okay.
Right. You have to make that a goal, and I know a lot of people don't do it, but you got to set yourself a bedtime. That's probably one of the major key things that a lot of people don't do. Next area is diet. I don't know if most people know this, but in I believe there was a study done. I'll see if I would believe it was in the 20s. They analyzed how much processed and refined sugar that the average person ate in a year, and they found out that it was about 5 pounds. I think last year it was 188 pounds. If you can make that one change, this is one of the most difficult changes to make, because sugar is, these days, it's in almost everything. From bread, they put high fructose corn sweetener in your bread nowadays. They never used to do that. There is key reasons for, the skyrocketing diabetes rates and obesity problems. You got to really, I know nobody wants to do it and take the time to do it, but you got to really read those labels, and you got to know the code words, the hidden code words for sugar, like high fructose corn syrup and things like that, because they'll sneak sugar in and not label it as sugar.
Really?
They'll sneak sweeteners into many things, and the reason that they do that is because they want to make it taste better, so people eat more of it and they'll buy more of it. But you got to really be careful, and read those labels. That's just one example. There's many other areas of diet that need help, but if you stick to just a few simple rules, it'll really help improve your diet. You got to not eat processed refined carbohydrates, and even you got to be careful even getting the whole wheat bread, because many times that stuff will have either trans fats or high fructose corn syrup, or there's a few other ingredients that are not so good for you. So you gotta learn to read those labels and really watch what's in there. Healthier choices, obviously, thank goodness nowadays they're starting to come out with some good products. And you'll as you read the labels and start to learn, you'll start spotting those products and kind of start gravitating towards the more healthy ones. And you don't really have to sacrifice taste anymore. There's a lot of natural, well-made products out there that don't have a lot of preservatives and additives and increased sugar content that really taste good now. There's a lot of alternatives for healthy eating. So a few years back, that really wasn't the case. There wasn't a lot of choices if you wanted to eat healthy. You'd have to basically make it yourself. And most people don't have enough time to do that these days. So they have to buy products off the shelf. But nowadays there are a number of good choices for things, and it's just a matter of taking a few extra moments, read that label, be careful what you're buying and what you're putting in your mouth, and you'll be a lot better off for it. The biggest thing to do, there's several good software programs out there that will help in this, and if you really want to take a few minutes and look into some of it, the one that I personally use in my own life is called Bodycraft. And basically what that does is it has a database of thousands of different types of foods, and what you can do is you make up, you can type in what you're eating, and it will do an analysis of how much percent protein, how much percent carbohydrate, how much percent fat. And if you will play around with that a little bit and get it to where you're eating, there's a good balance between protein and fat and carbohydrates. And a general rule of thumb is that you want about, at least this is what I use, and especially if you're trying to lose a little bit of weight, this is helpful. You want to get about 30% of your calories from protein, about 40% of your calories from carbohydrates, and about 30% calories from fat. And of course everybody knows, or well, maybe not everybody knows, but you want to make those the right types of fat. The saturated fat and the trans fats are not so good, but the monounsaturated and fats are much better. Those are things that are typically found like in fish and olive oil and things like that. So you got to kind of watch the composition of that fat. But if you're comfortable with it and you kind of know how to read those labels and see what percentage of things are fats and what are carbohydrates and stuff, you don't really necessarily need the software, but the software makes it much easier. The next one would be exercise.